26 years worth, so you should clock in about 12 minutes, so just settle it. Yeah, I'm not joking. So it's also, this is a celebration not just of the MFA, but the entire English department. I think it's a great department. A lot of those books out there came from former undergrads and former grad students before we had the MFA. And I think this is a great place, and I just want you to know it's not just about MFAs tonight. So it took a lot of people to put on this event, and I know I'm going to miss some of you, so please forgive me. Please forgive me also for not mentioning by name all the chairs and departmental colleagues and grad coordinators without whom this program wouldn't have happened. I'm going to say a lot of people, and then we'll applaud for them when I say it. Let's applaud. Through the imperfect, fascinating, beautiful, primitive medium of words. Something also gets lost when I try to say how privileged and humbled I am to work with such people. They come here willing to commit to searching themselves in the world, willing to labor, willing to risk self-doubt and failure, willing to take on the courageous act of writing, even though they have no idea where it might lead. Getting to teach writers is one of the great joys of my life. Being part of this underdog, overachieving program is one of my greatest prides. Seeing people find what they want to say and how to say it is a kind of transcendence. So I thank you, SCSU MFAs, for making every second of frustration and hard work worth more than I could have ever imagined. Here's to another 10 years. Now I want to welcome Professor Robin Troy.
Hi, it is so good and sort of bittersweet and good to be back here. When I was a kid, I used to think that when you turned off the TV and the screen went black, that the show just kept right on going right behind the screen. And I think delusionally I sort of had that same feeling since I left Southern, that surely my life at Southern is still in present tense, and that you just lift up that screen like life as I knew it is still right here.
Through the imperfect, fascinating, beautiful, primitive medium of words. Something also gets lost when I try to say how privileged and humbled I am to work with such people. They come here willing to commit to searching themselves in the world, willing to labor, willing to risk self-doubt and failure, willing to take on the courageous act of writing, even though they have no idea where it might lead. Getting to teach writers is one of the great joys of my life. Being part of this underdog, overachieving program is one of my greatest prides. Seeing people find what they want to say and how to say it is a kind of transcendence. So I thank you, SCSU MFAs, for making every second of frustration and hard work worth more than I could have ever imagined. Here's to another 10 years. Welcome, Professor Robin Troy.
Hi, it is so good and sort of bittersweet and good to be back here. When I was a kid, I used to think that when you turned off the TV, the screen went black, that the show just kept right on going right behind the screen. And I think delusionally I sort of had that same feeling since I left Southern, that surely my life at Southern is still in present tense, and that I felt that screen like life as I knew it was still right here.
Through the imperfect, fascinating, beautiful, primitive medium of words. Something also gets lost when I try to say how privileged and humbled I am to work with such people. They come here willing to commit to searching themselves in the world, willing to labor, willing to risk self-doubt and failure, willing to take on the courageous act of writing, even though they have no idea where it might lead. Getting to teach writers is one of the great joys of my life. Being part of this underdog, overachieving program is one of my greatest prides. Seeing people find what they want to say and how to say it is a kind of transcendent. So I thank you, SCSU MFAs, for making every second of frustration and hard work worth more than I could have ever imagined. Here's to another 10 years. Now I want to welcome Professor Robin Troy.
I know, let's look at Hi, it is so good and sort of bittersweet and good to be back here. When I was a kid, I used to think that when you turned off the TV and the screen went black, that the show just kept right on going right behind the screen. And I think delusionally I sort of had that same feeling since I left Southern, that surely my life at Southern was still in present tense, and then I lift up that screen like I knew it was still right here. You have money, no guarantee of success, but again, one way or another, you know that you can't help it. And the result of having a group of so many people who've all made that same decision, that they can't help it, is that we have this community of inspired, creative, quirky, and to quote my boyfriend, a quarter off bubble in the best way, community of us. So lucky us for being a part of that community. Lucky Southern for having us. And specifically lucky Southern for having Tim and Jeff and Vivian and Rachel, who are the heartbeat of this MFA program. I'm really proud to have been a part of this university's quirky, creative, inspired community. And on the 10-year anniversary, I just wanted to say a cheers to all of us in this room who've made that same decision and to all the accomplishments of our students. Thank you.
That when it came to creative writing events, both undergrad and graduate, I could count on a warm and welcoming space, and that was huge. A hefty thank you to my fiction writing colleague Tim. Even though he was on medical leave my first semester and couldn't really see, he still checked in. He does more behind the scenes work for this program than most people will ever know, and I have no idea how he does it all. He may do a lot of talking, but he's also an incredible listener and will hear out any tale I have to tell. A thank you to Jeff. His steady and calm presence helps to keep this program running. He continually leads a remarkable group of students in folio each year. And a thank you to Vivian, who was one of the first people to email me after I was hired, and continues to be welcoming and inviting me to poetry events, even though I'm a fiction writer who hasn't quite figured out line breaks. To the students, we wouldn't have a program without students. I taught at 3 other universities before I came to Southern. My most rewarding teaching experiences by far have been at Southern. I still remember the first graduate class I taught. The first night, it was evident how deeply invested these writers were in storytelling, and I was so overwhelmed with joy and gratitude that I almost cried in the middle of class. I managed to wait till the end. Many creative writers are kind of oddballs, and I'm no exception. Still, I can walk into a classroom, be who I am, and be accepted by my students. I am so grateful for that. These students dare to tell the stories others won't, and to rewrite these vital stories again and again until the story hits an authenticity that gives me goosebumps. One of the readers tonight, Nick, is one of those students who gave me goosebumps from a writing class. As many of you know, being in a writing workshop requires showing up week after week and being willing to sit in stories others have written, no matter what the conflict. It's mentally and emotionally demanding, and these students show up day after day. They are fearless in the subject matter they take on, persistent in their exploration of difficult conflicts, and generous in the feedback they offer one another. It's a privilege to watch them grow. They inspire and energize me. I'm a better teacher, writer, and person because of them, and I look forward to continuing to grow with them. And I'm interested in it.
I've been here 50 years. I came here in 1968. I'm still standing. I walked in off the street in September, looking for an AFM job. They said, would you like to have two assistant professor's jobs? I said, well, I don't want to know. I didn't know if they'd think about it, come back. A day or two later, I just like, maybe I should take the job. So here it is. I also, over these 50 years, would have loved to take credit for everything that's happening in this room tonight. In fact, I love to take credit for everything, but I can't find a single thing tonight I can take credit for. So this is a difficult time for me. Appreciate this, all the difficult there. Also, I'm very grateful to Tim, to Jeff, to Robin, for all the work that they did to get our MFA here. And I said this in the theory of all the wonderful students that are sitting here in this room that I've been able to teach. And I've been blessed by them. But tonight, before I introduce Ms. Powell, I'd like to say a special thank you to Tim Harris. Now, lest you all think that I'm a woman who wanders up and down the store aisles, I do, but I would not want you all to think that about me because I'm cool. But at any rate, when I saw this bottle, I could not resist buying it. Now, you're not going to believe this, but the last part of Tim's introduction sort of said completely against it, because I brought tonight a bottle of whiskey, Irish whiskey, for Tim, entitled Writer's View. Could have resisted this. In addition to that, I have a special cup for him, which says, "This is probably." But what I'd like to do tonight, I think you all are very aware of all the debt that we owe to Tim, to Jeff, to Robin. But what I'd like to do is pay tribute to Tim as a writer. Because Tim has never lied to you all. Some writers will tell you, I sent my first poem to the New Yorker and they got accepted. I don't know how. Well, that's not true. Writing is hard. Writing is painful. And Tim has shared that with all of you. I think you've been a real inspiration for me and for everybody here. Because you struggle with your writing, you persevere, and you go ahead and do it. And you do tough work. And it's hard. But it's also, it's wonderful. And so I think that this bottle of whiskey, Irish whiskey, is appropriate with writer's tears because it's a difficult thing, whether you're writing creative writing, Tony writing academic work, you still have blank pages there that you have to fill out. And so I'd like to pay tribute tonight to Tim as a wonderful mentor, a wonderful colleague, but also a wonderful writer. And don't forget that. So don't start drinking this until a little bit later. I think it's got a screw top on it. Okay. The other thing I did want to point out, I thought it's very appropriate that this is Irish whiskey. I'm sorry, Lee, but don't be offended. I think you all know that some of the finest poets and some of the finest novelists, fiction writers are Irish. And so, if you're Irish, you don't even need to have a reason. So, go for it. All right. Now, I would also like to now introduce Ms. Powell. And again, this is an example of where I'd like to be able to take credit for the great talent that you're about to hear. But the best I decided I could do when Mick appeared in my workshop was to do no harm. And so I hope, Mick, in the years that we've worked together, I have done no harm. But that was the best I felt I could do in mentoring this incredible talent. Nick is the assistant professor in residence in women's gender and sexuality studies program at Utah. Congratulations. Nick entered the MFA program in fall 2016, and when she read her first poem at the MFA workshop, I was immediately aware of her exceptional talent and her unique, fully formed voice. I also realized, as I said, my best approach to working with her was to do no harm. I had the honor of being her thesis advisor and witnessed the creation of a powerful collection of chronicles bodies from your company that was chosen for the 2018 Yemezi Capital Prize from the University of South Carolina. It was published in 2019. Her poem, Last Night I Dreamed A.D. Undead, about the post-night romance in Orlando, won Columbia Journal's first prize, winter 2018 poetry. Nick's work centers on lived experiences as a queer, Black, femme woman who traces the intergenerational effects of racist, sexist, and gender-based violence. As my graduate teaching intern in spring 2018, an introduction to creative writing, she saved my life. Nick brought so much energy into the class, made the undergraduate students aware that they could improve contemporary events by sharing her poems that reference Ray and Beyonce. By fostering her own courage and spirit of adventure in English 201 students, she enabled them to explore their own creative options. During the 2 years that I worked with Nick in the MFA program, I developed great respect for the long-standing commitment that she has to the concept that words must touch and affect readers to keep the human fire alive. Her poems are memorable because they are physical. They remind us to think of people who might otherwise be forgotten. What unites her intense and compelling collection is her knowledge that in spite of the complexity of being human, we cannot allow a world of reflects to drown out songs to silence us. Nick. Wow, 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 I give you Nick Powell.
Thank you so much. Just give me a second to set up. Hi everybody. Oh my god, it's so incredible just to like look at the whole group because I've been like down here, and so just seeing all the faces is like really moving. I'd like to just say thank you to the SCSU MFA program, one for bringing us all together in this space tonight, and also just for making me, I can say personally, the writer that I am today, and also for giving me the space to write this collection, Chronicle the Body, which, as Vivian mentioned, was formed as part of my master's thesis. So, yeah, the chapbook, it focuses on intergenerational trauma, which Vivian mentioned, and really tracing those threads throughout. And Vivian also mentioned the first poem that I read in class when I started the MFA program in 2016, and so I'm going to open with that poem, which is also the opening poem of the book. The poem's title is I'm Thinking of Fire, Forgiveness, My Mother, and Fire. Ma, didn't you want to know how I mantraed my bullied mouth into water sound? How I got Atlantis, disappeared the raw red and became a city of calendar? How I haunted the ghost and the god, turned my body black tourmaline, thumbed into the aloe plant and ate its nectar to soften between my legs, to bury myself in a casket of peach skin? Didn't you want to know how I learned to braid hair in the dark? Or how I crawled open my jaw? How I imagined sage burning between my teeth? Imagined all the earth smoke ashing me into small? my soft spot, or how I sabotaged it when it became turquoise and rib bone, brimmed with violent apology. Ma, didn't you want to know how I ripped all of the baby teeth from myself that night? I made him a raw red place to put himself instead of down there, where all it did was flame. So the chapbook is composed of 4 sections, and the first section is called An Inheritance of Scars. And so it's really doing that work of tracing sort of the legacies of violence and how those legacies sort of impact us in the contemporary moment. And so within that section, I have a 3-part poem called Candy Girls, and each one takes place in a different sort of decade and focuses on an experience of a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter. And so I'd like to read the first one, which is the grandmother's experience. It's called Candy Girls, 1961. I remember dancing with this man who was a Harry Belafonte handsome with a gold tooth and coiled hair and no wife. And I didn't have a husband with me, so I let that cool man hold me in that dark Birmingham banquet hall, and we swayed like we was willows in autumn, breezed our bodies to the same beat till I came clean water. And I remember he was smiling like I was the most beautiful black girl he'd seen in his lifetime, like I was the last good box of juji fruit. And I was smiling with the clean water between my legs, and I wasn't so ashamed to be black and wet with strange hands all over me. And I remember me and him left because he had a place up the road, and I remember it rained and he draped an old jacket over me. I remember it smelled like evergreen. And I know we wasn't supposed to be there, the street, the city, none of it. I know that sundown could turn a town into a hunger, and a hunger so thick ain't so easily satisfied. And I know nothing could stop a hell-bent devil, but we was happy and we was black in the rain with a gospel song in our mouths, thinking how we might make Christ out of each other's bodies that night. And then the blue eye of the hell-bent devil fell on my chest heavy, heavy. And we was all black and all blood and probably should have been on the other side of the street. And this hell-bent devil wrecked my man's mouth with a stone. A small string of teeth shot straight from between his lips, and the moonlight shined on them, and the world turned blue, so blue. And my gospel turned to scream when something broke open my chest, and my clean water turned blood, because this other devil was inside of me. The devil was inside of me, and that night had turned so blue, and our blood had crimsoned the streets. And when it was over, when the 2 men dropped their blistering cum over my body and kicked my man's stomach in so deep that he was choking up pieces of bone, I remember feeling lucky. I remember feeling lucky. Lucky that I wasn't dead and he wasn't dead. Lucky that I could carry him home under the patchless blue sky, whispering a soft gospel through the gentle and roaring rain. This is Candy Girls 2011, the daughter's perspective. I remember my body. I remember my body all buttercup and cypress, a string of kaleidoscope rose petals wrapped around the wrist, drenched in sandalwood, in a hash of soft moonlight. I remember my body a bright kitchen, all sugar, jag, sweet milk, papaya and lime, basil leaf, slow fire, the smell of it. I remember my body dancing at the cookout. I imagine the cookout a church. I imagine a church on fire, slow fire. I imagine a fire and its hunger. I am all sugar. I am in short shorts. I am 17. I am a grown-ass woman. My grandmother calls me Borboleta, her eternal butterfly. I remember all the words to the New Edition song. I sing all the words to the New Edition song. My brother's friends think it's cute. I am cute, all buttercup and cypress, all 17 and alive, all butterfly with my tongue where it didn't belong. I'm in short shorts at the cookout. I dance into the bright kitchen alone, and I'm suddenly surrounded by my brother's friends. They still think I'm cute. They also think I'm convertible. They convert my body into a fat blunt. I remember being passed around the room. I remember my body a butterfly's tongue. I remember being 17 and putting my tongue where it didn't belong. I remember being sorry I was alive where I shouldn't have been alive with my tongue where it didn't belong. I remember it rained later on. I remember it thundered. I remember my jawbreaker. I remember my body a jawbreaker, all sugar. I remember feeling heavy, heavy. I imagine a heavy church. I imagine all the tithe. I imagine all the gospel. I remember feeling heavy, heavy. I remember having a body. I remember being eaten, all sugar. I remember all the words to the New Edition song. I sang all the words to the New Edition song. I remember the rain. I remember I couldn't stand it. The second section of the chapbook is titled Dream Suite, and it focuses on both dreams and nightmares. And I think that it moves like from the beginning to just really engaging with my dreams, engaging with my sort of like the psychology around dreams, and then as it moves toward, and some nightmares of course, and then as it moves towards the end of it, I think I start to conceptualize dreams as a space in which we can imagine new worlds, and there's new possibility in that. And so I think that as that section sort of goes on, it starts to bring us into the part of the book that focuses on healing. And so what I'll read first from that section is the poem that Vivian mentioned last night, I Dreamed KJ Undead, that won the Columbia Prize. And it's about my friend KJ, who was killed in the 2016 Orlando Pool shooting. And what's miraculous too, or not miraculous I wouldn't say, but like what's fascinating is that I teach about the Pool shooting in my women, gender, and violence class. And it sort of surprises me the sort of lack of knowledge, sort of like community knowledge around the shooting. And I think I taught it last week, and just the conversations around it were sort of fascinating about what we don't know, or what the students do know. So this poem is called Last Night I Dreamed KJ Undead. Whole here and in June, the bullet had not wrecked her chest, but it had entered, and it had punctured. There was an exit wound bruised blue. She showed me the flush of it beneath her breast, how blue it had blossomed, and even the light in the room was blue. Our skin grew black and safe, azure, azure, azure. How blue, she said, to survive when so many had not, and to be here or there, the nightclub blue. She remembered the music blue. She remembered the bullets. She curled away from the word like it might lemon bloom in her throat. She could not talk about the guns. She even pulled away when I reached out my hands to hold her, and we both grew blue numb, blue numb, blue numb. She said there was something about my fingers. My fingers, she said, they looked like the barrel of it. This is Dreamscape with distinct versions of myself. The dyke joke finally gets funny at the house party where we are all but our bodies, and everyone is playing down-tempo remixes of their favorite fast songs. And we are all strobe and sorry and slowly dragging out our drownings in a shallow ashtray full of chicken bone and firefly carcass, all collected in the backyard of a hood we poet into home. And the jars where we once lived are stained with rotting red wine, or what we want to know as our brothers, and they are tipped over on the ceiling, dripping on the thick girl with the tongue whose mouth is open and braids are lilac. I want to ask her about her hair, but I don't remember her language, and now she won't stop playing her song loudest, and I'm kind of into it, like the way it feels when you know your skin well. I am moving into my strange body, all fist first into mouth-shaped U-Haul, and asleep, my tongue is pierced twice and swelling into a rooftop that she walks on in a gold prom dress. And I can see her panties, and I can crave her secret stash of good herb and fat tongue. But I am not enough, and everything peacefully sacrificed and born. So we descend into the stars until I am alone, and landed in a sofa, slumping over in its own piss, and I lay there until my dress is piss yellow and feel pretty, and my hands become toilet paper, and I wipe the dress off, and I am finally naked in front of everyone I've ever wanted to be naked in front of. So this next one is also about KJ, and it's the poem that closes out this section of the book. And it's called To Kimberly, which was her first name, Kimberly As You Were. after Eve Ewing, and after Rosalind's charade. In this dream, we never learn the bullet's name. I let you control the radio. Every song is a birthing ballad, and you are not dead. In this dream, the canaries have hearts shaped like pink amaryllis outside of their chests. You want to touch the wings of the thing. Hold them in your hand like some miraculous metal. In this dream, there are only autumns, and you are not ticking towards some man's homegrown rage. In this dream, we are washed in jasmine and juniper, and the stardust returns to your smile, and the freckles return to your face. Before the nightclub, you stand staring at yourself in the mirror, drenched in dream smoke, a fishbowl of lavender. You trace the length of your collarbone, call it a synonym for song. You trace the length of...
The Honorable Rosa DeLaura wanted me to present this certificate of recognition to you. Ryan Lee Gosby, for your service to our nation in the United States Army, with thanks for your outstanding commitment and dedication to our country and your work in the community. The challenge point is, if Ryan is in a bar with Rosa, and Rosa does not have her challenge point, Rosa is fine.
One other order of business. Didn't mark your name off the marking lot. Please do. There's alumni relations that we don't want to ask. So, I think one of the greatest testaments to the program is the reason I chose Mick and Ryan to read tonight is just because they were the most recent in the queue. So, wrap your head around that. These two writers, just because they showed up in line. So, you may, I mean, really. I don't have a great deal to add what others have said about the quality of Ryan Dossey's formation and women's memoir, Stepping Out of Line. I'll just pass along snippets of what a couple of other writers and reviewers have said. Esquire said it's urgent and necessary. National Book Award winner Phil Clay said, Formation was a much more expansive book than I even could have expected. A riveting and raging memoir from an author of remarkable toughness and emotional range. Sarah Hepola, New York Times best-selling author of Blackout, said, Formation grabs us by the collar and never relents, much like Dossey herself, whose path to independence gets paved with blood and sacrifice. Her gripping memoir lays bare the pain of proving yourself in a man's world, but also the rich reward. Just go to Amazon and you'll see the list of Ryan's accolades in about along my arm. So it's amazing. It was a privilege to work with Ryan, as it has been with so many writers here at Southern. Around 2006, just back from Iraq and a star history major, Ryan decided to take an introduction to fiction writing class. By the end of that class, I dipped into material that was the kernel of his memoir. Ryan was struggling with severe PTSD. It was plain how racking it was for her to mine this material, not her first choice as a writer of urban fantasy, and not the safe or easy choice to say the incredibly obvious. But once she completed her history thesis, she came back to start this memoir. With that rough beginning, won the Distinguished Undergraduate Thesis Award. She went away for a couple of years and then joined our MFA program, where she fully committed to this book. It's cliche to say that writers of memoirs about trauma are courageous and unflinching, but in this case, it's also true. But what I want to say is how hard Ryan worked, immersing herself in dangerous memories, then drafting and redrafting and redrafting and structuring and restructuring and refining and refining. Formation is an incredible book, but I knew that no matter what her book turned out to be, or whether it was published, or receive any recognition, Ryan was a real writer. I saw her seriousness and capacity to grow, and her generosity to her classmates, and in her appreciation of what they gave to her, and how she took their feedback and worked the best of it into her writing. She became better and better, and when writers get better, it's a sign of a different type of strength and bravery that allows one to let go of what does not serve the narrative and the writing, no matter how safe and precious that old writing is. I'm proud that Ryan represents the prose side of our program tonight, not only because of how good her writing is, but also because she is representative of the work ethic, the desire to improve, and the drive to take chances that distinguish our students here. Thank you, Ryan, for letting me be a part of this process. Please welcome Ryan.
But it's really to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. They need to understand that we won't allow it. Lies. Lies made further disturbing when they all nod, heads some swivels. Yes, don't you know? We'll protect you, see? We're protecting you. One boy glances at me frantically, up and down, at his feet up again, down, mixed with terror and shame, a wild, glittering stare, and he reeks the most of guilt. He can't be over 18. I can't tell if it's his face or apparent guilt that convinces me. I think that's him, I say, trying to convey my uncertainty, but they don't care. Excuse me, but they couldn't care less. They are here to make a point. Let's not let facts get in the way. Two soldiers flank him, and the boy's eyes widen. His gaze stays glued to the ground. But he doesn't protest. He doesn't speak. He walks between the much taller soldiers, compliant, defeated between their shadows, and no one looks at me now. I am contagious. The formation of Iraqis stare at the ground. The soldiers up front have better things to look at. They dismiss me. I don't run, but I walk quickly. My feet find a familiar path to my work building. The shade gives me a small relief this time, and I climb the stairs numbly until the fourth floor, where I turn and climb over broken walls, cement blocks, with iron rods bursting through the surface. I stumble over blasted marble, dust settling around me like a white shroud. I find a room and burrow in the rubble, spine pressed against the wall. I dig my feet into the floor and arms wrapped protectively around my M16. I cry where no one can hear me. Cheeks pressed against the warm metal, fighting for air between body-racking sobs. I bawl like a child, like a girl, until the shadows lengthen and I have nothing left to give. I am nicely empty and quiet and dead. And then I can go back to work. So, how much time do I have? None? I usually like to end on a happier note. I feel like, this is the one I like to end on because it's just, not so doom and gloom. And this is the fourth section, but it is slightly before my descent down the rabbit hole of madness. So, sort of a happy note. Then there are and this is talking about at college and stuff. There are the young women who look at me strangely, in awe or horror, as if they don't know how to process me. I stand outside their boxes. They can't decide if I bravely defied the machine or if I've become cowed and indoctrinated by it. Is it even any place for a woman? Some ask. Would you suggest I join? Ask others. One particular woman stands before me, face open and bright, staring up at me as she says, I'm thinking of joining the Army, like becoming an officer. What do you think? I think I feel old as I look at her, she who is young in more than just physical years. I open my mouth but nothing comes out. How do I answer this? Whom am I loyal to? Do I side with the pride of the uniform, the love of service for those years that made me hard but strong? With the love of flag and country and the brothers and sisters I stood and fought beside? Or should I be loyal to my sex? Should I tell her about the darker side of being a woman in that uniform while standing with those brothers and sisters? Should I warn her about but the love of flag and country will foster. Instead, I stutter. It'll either be the greatest thing you ever do or the worst. Which isn't an answer at all, and the girl knows it. She tilts her head at me, frowning. It's hard, I clarify lamely. I don't mind hard, she shoots back, lifting her chin in defiance. You have to be able to handle a joke, and you can't be sensitive. I'm already subconsciously training her on how to conform. She practically rolls her eyes at me. Obviously, I grew up with 3 brothers. I'm used to hanging around guys, which isn't the same at all. But suddenly, I don't want to scare her away. Honestly, I say with a sigh, deflating, I loved it. Because I did. Overall, by large, I loved it. And knowing what I know now, if I could go back to that girl I was and stand over her shoulder as she leaned over a contract, ready to sign her name, I don't think I could whisper in her ear, don't do it. I don't think I would take it all away. I'd lose running through the beaches of Monterey, flutter kicks in the tall grass of Soldiers Field, my drill sergeant finally smiling at me. The one night in the Iraqi desert as it grew colder and colder and the sky was a blanket of unadulterated stars. All the good and all the bad. I'm not so sure I could change me. She grins, because it's what she wants to hear. I'm just here with confirmation bias. As she walks away, I feel a little guilty. I don't think I've properly prepared her. I feel like I lied somehow. But the Army needs good women. It needs strong women. It needs those of us who have no interest in white picket fences and traditional domesticity. We have been around for thousands of years, us women who don't want to conform, and they need to get used to us being here. We're not going away. We're not going to let them win this one.
If you haven't yet signed in, step right outside the door, and Tim will follow in a few moments. MFAs, please hang around. Everyone else, please. Have some dessert, have a seat if you'd like, come back, take a look at our students' books. They're on display, pick them up, read through them, read through passages, take a look at their practice and their publication experience and their literary experience and their teaching experience. I appreciate all of you have done. It's been wonderful to have you here this evening. Come out tomorrow if you can, 1 to 4. Upstairs on the 2nd floor, England D253, 1 to 4. So thank you for coming out tonight.